Hello, BillWhittle.com members. I'm Steve Green with Bill Whittle and Scott Ott, and this is your members-only lightning round. Who loves these?
Awesome.
You are killing me, Larry.
I love these because we get to talk about things that might not be worth a whole segment, but are certainly interesting nonetheless. Or at least they seem that way when I picked the headlines out during the last couple of weeks.
I'll be the judge of that.
Let's dig straight in. I'm going to start, I'm going to give this first headline to Bill. I can't remember where I saw this. Oh, it was at American Thinker. I think it was a Tom Liston piece. Obama shatters previous record, mentions himself 467 times to an audience in Berlin. And Bill, you know these like YouTube supercuts where they just take out all little bits?
Yeah.
They did a supercut of all of his I, me, my's in this thing, and it runs for 4 minutes and 36 seconds. Do you miss this guy yet?
Single syllable words. Wow.
I don't much miss him. I have to tell you.
Really?
No, here's my first thought. My first thought is that you should basically not tell anybody else about this. And we should say that in memory of President Obama, who we all love so much, we should have a drinking game for Democrats only, for progressives only, and that every time President Obama says "I, me" or references himself, you have to take a shot of vodka, and this is a problem that solves itself. I mean, it's like, I didn't do anything to the guys. I just set the rules. Yeah, who's going to survive?
Can't be done. Can't be done.
And you know what's especially just kind of tickling about this whole thing is when you said President Obama, it took me a minute, like, who? Oh, yeah, I remember now. I remember the guy, I think, kind of. Yeah.
Vaguely.
Well, okay.
Man, I do not miss that voice. I really don't.
Let me just add, Steve, I'm fairly sure that the average American optometrist doesn't use the word "I" that often.
And even when he does or she does, they're referring to your eyes, not their own in most cases anyway. All right, Scott, that brings us to you. Are you ready? Can you handle it?
Reluctantly.
All right. Actually, you know what? I should have given this one to Bill. So I'm just going to flip things around here. Stacey Abrams, you remember her. She ran for governor in Georgia last fall and lost. She complained in an interview with MSNBC's Joy Reid that the race was stolen through voter suppression. And in that same interview, she bragged of huge turnout increases among Democratic voters. So I think this brings me to my theory, Scott, which is this. Is there anything easier in American life than being a Democrat?
Well, yeah, no matter how things turn out, it was you won, either you're aggrieved more so than you were before, which is considered a virtue, or you're sitting in office. Years ago, Hugh Hewitt wrote a book that under the title, If It Ain't Close, They Can't Cheat. And the idea was, let's drive turnout among Republicans so that we don't have to worry about the illegally registered voters and the mail-in ballots and all that kind of stuff, the kind of monkey business that could have been involved in an election, that could throw an election. Now, frankly, I've never been a big believer that many elections were thrown by that kind of misbehavior, at least not in recent years. Perhaps I'm naive and don't buy into, every claim of such a thing. But if you show up at the polling places with buses of people and then complain that somehow there was manipulation or illegalities on the other hand, it makes it tough to make that claim. I remember when I was standing outside a polling place in a township near Allentown, Pennsylvania, when I was running for office, and there were all these guys there who were from local unions. And the one guy who was standing next to me was actually campaigning on behalf of my opponent for the county executive seat.
In the line?
And yeah, he's in line. He's standing. He's not standing in line to vote. He's one of the guys handing out brochures with me. He's like right next to me.
Okay.
So anyway, and I said, he didn't know who I was, by the way. So I'm the opponent of the guy he's representing. My face is on the brochures that I'm handing out, and it had been on billboards in downtown Allentown and on, all over the place. Anyway, So he had no idea who I was. And I said, tell me, what is it that you like about Mr. Mueller? And he said, oh, I don't know. They told me that I should come down here and stand at the polling place from 2 to 4. So he was getting paid to come and stand at the polling place and hand out brochures for somebody that he knew nothing about. To me, that's a kind of a corruption of the system. It's not deep, it's not illegal and stuff like that, but it's the general attitude I think that a lot of Democrats have about how elections are conducted. So, Stacey, show us the evidence. If there was some sort of corruption involved in that election process, bring forth those phony ballots.
Yeah,
evidence is racist, and you know it.
But there's actual corruption here. There really is. And it's on the part of Stacey Abrams, who is trying to delegitimize a perfectly legal and fair election.
That's right.
A corrupt process she is engaging in, and she learned it from Hillary Clinton starting about November of 2016. All right. Oh, man. I don't know if you guys have been following this story, but we have reports now, and stuff is on tape, of Joe Biden in Ukraine bragging that he got the Ukrainian prosecutor fired who was looking into his own son's dealing with Ukrainian oil and just basically doing Moscow's bidding.
Biden's son you're talking about?
Yes. Joe Biden was bragging about getting his son Hunter off the hook by getting a Ukrainian prosecutor fired, and this was with the aid of the then Obama administration. It's just a filthy story. And now a Ukrainian prosecutor or Ukrainian official is asking U.S. prosecutors at the Department of Justice, this is Bob Barr's Department of Justice, right? This is current day, asking his DOJ, why don't you want our evidence on Democrats? So, Bill, my question to you is there anything easier in American life than being a Democrat?
I think one of the things that we see in our society is that too much prosperity and too much security makes people weak and flabby. And the Democratic Party is on the bleeding edge of this phenomenon. I mean this sincerely, because there is no scrutiny of the Democratic Party, because they have the ring of invisibility on the part of the media, and they have the shield, and stories that are bad for Democrats are not only not reported, they're actively suppressed, and stories that are bad for Republicans are trumpeted to the skies, and so on. And it is, needless to say, it is at least a 20 or 30 point headwind at the polls. If we had an unbiased media, we would have the whole country would vote like Kansas. But it does make them unbelievably complacent and unbelievably flabby and stupid. There's no natural selection applied. We know every single argument that the left makes. We hear it every single day because it comes to us from the news media and movies, television, talk shows, music, everything. They are. If you're going to be a conservative in America, you got to go find your own news sources, and you have to be able to sort data and figure out how to tell the truth. That's like a salmon swimming upstream. They're like an old log that fell into the river and is just being carried down to the ocean from, and so on some level, Steve, the fact that he's bragging about it is an indication that they are so sure of themselves that this whole thing is starting to come apart for them. And certainly Hillary's campaign died of overconfidence. Bill was the only one apparently savvy enough to say, we're in some real trouble here, And I'm going to do a firewall on our military and preparedness and stuff. But having been a big student of history, I find that the surest way to get your ass kicked is to be completely unprepared. And the second surest way is to be sure that nobody can kick your ass. And that's the position that they seem to be finding themselves in more and more often these days.
Yeah. You talk about that overconfidence, Bill. Apparently Hillary's rural outreach director was a 30-year-old hipster in Brooklyn. And I'm not kidding. This was
He's
one
got
of those
the coveralls and the beard,
things.
though. That's the thing. That's the main thing.
Yeah, I love those ironic lumberjack beards. Who are these people fooling? All right, Scott. Last headline goes to you. Oh no. This is for Bill. My bad. No,
I just did one.
Yeah, you did. This one's for Scott. This headline should have gone to Bill. I messed up a little bit, but you're going to get it. Sacramento, California state government wants to tax soda, tires, guns, water, pain pills, lawyers, car batteries, and more.
They don't already?
let me frame this in a way that I think will kind of tickle your fancy here, since you're not the Californian that we have in Bill.
Nor do I have an ironic lumberjack beard.
No, really, shouldn't the founders have given a little more serious thought to how to eject a misbehaving state from the Union?
Well, fortunately, I mean, Sacramento, you're talking about, I'm assuming, the state government, not just the government of Sacramento.
Yes.
Okay,
This statewide taxes. This comes down to my new theory. Reagan got it wrong. The modern Democratic version is, if it moves, tax it. If it keeps moving, tax it some more. If it stops moving, impose a death tax.
Well, and so the Republic of California has this government that wants to do this to it. And I say, do it. Do it a lot. Do it as much as you possibly can. Because this is part of this. I'm sorry, Bill. I've invited you to move to Texas. How many times? Okay.
Many people.
All the times.
So quit your whining. So you voluntarily chose to live there. And anybody who voluntarily chooses to live in California and to live under such a regime gets what's coming to them. If they like that, I mean, at a certain point, here's the recipe in California that they're always trying to fiddle with. They're like, this is the weather, and this is oppressive government regulation. And how can we got to keep the weather up a little bit above repressive government regulation.
That last heat stroke in Texas kept 100,000 Californians in the state. No question about it.
That's right. So, and seriously, that's what it is. It's because what God did for California is awesome. What Californians have done since has kind of really sort of is on the other end of the scale. And so I think it's great that any state experiments with any tax regime, any kind of regulation they want to. I may not choose to live in that state. I can move somewhere else, but I want a state like California to be the ultimate in progressive policies. I want every municipality and every city in California to go fully progressive so
Absolutely
that people can look at it and say, let me evaluate the pros and cons of moving there. And when you get to that point, then I think that you've got a fair balance. Now, granted, the weather in Texas is a little different than the weather in California, but I'll tell you what, we cannot stop people from moving to Texas, and it is not because of the weather, it's because of the rich aroma of liberty.
Absolutely right. And I might add, by the way, and as I've said before, wouldn't take but 15 Texans with AR-15s to take this entire state. Wouldn't have to fire a shot, just walk down the street with them slung over your shoulders. They could be unloaded. That'd still do it.
I'm picturing the governor calling out the National Guard on those 15 Texans, and the National Guard going, Just a thought. All right, one last one. I want to give to you a small report from the Party of Science, and this is from Matt Iglesias, who you might know from young adult infotainment site Vox, and I think he's written for Slate and a bunch of other outlets. This is a guy who previously, a few years ago, just put out on Twitter, I think sometimes that we should absolutely be dishonest. Well, today or yesterday, he put out a tweet concerning the Republican tax cuts of late 2016 that went into effect, or 17 that went into effect last year. He said, nobody likes to give themselves credit. Meanwhile, he's patting himself on the back, right? Nobody likes to give themselves credit for this kind of messaging success, but progressive groups did a really good job of convincing people that Trump raised their taxes when the facts say a clear majority got a tax cut. And the reason he can put this out on Twitter, and as far as I know, this tweet has not been deleted, is these left-wing journalists, they feel absolutely untouchable because they know they get 24/7 friendly air cover from everybody else in their field, and we've just got to drive this stuff home 24/7. So you can go to the PJM Live blog where I write an edition to Instapundit and find a copy of that tweet. I think Glenn or Ed put the tweet up on Instapundit too, so you can look for it there. And you got to share that thing on Facebook and let your friends and family know that, yeah, doesn't matter what the newspapers tell you. You probably got a tax cut last year, and enjoy it, okay? It's a tax cut. Have some fun. And that is your members only right angle lightning round. Thanks so much for making this possible. I've gone on entirely too long, so I'll just say thank you one more time, and we'll see you next week.